The sequel to the unfortunate live-action hit Alice in Wonderland happily didn't win over audiences or critics. On the one hand, it's very easy to see why. It's continuing its lame attempt at making Underland, however did I confuse those two, into a rebellious action-packed resistance movie. Like its predecessor, it has virtually nothing to do with the Lewis Carroll books, but to its credit, it does actually have seeds of what Alice in Wonderland was. Okay, there's seeds growing under a brick house of dumb, but they're still seeds. Is it a shame then that this one made less money despite it having more elements from the books than the original? Or is this series just getting inevitably what it deserves? Let's take a closer look. This is Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Surrendering my father's ship!
Okay, when I said there's elements of the original, I didn't mean right away. Yeah, Alice is the captain of her own ship now, and she's about as commanding as Keira Knightley leading pirates. Between the two of them, I don't think they could lead a school of fish.
Hard to port, Harper!
I'll give credit to Alice, played again by Mia Wasikowska. There is at least a little investment in her performance. Though granted, after the last film, an aggressive blink would be welcomed at this point.
That's enough chatter.
Whoa, tone down there, Daniel Day-Lewis. But she doesn't have much to work off of, as, once again, she plays the ahead-of-her-time outsider who must prove she's tough and independent before proving she's interesting or has a personality. Most unorthodox, and then there's unorthodox. This is most unorthodox. Hell, the cliched, pompous, uppity cocks have more personality if you really think about it.
No other company is in the business of hiring female clerks, let alone ship's captains.
My teeth can't get any bigger, but my monocle certainly can.
There will be no further expeditions. You will start in files, but in time...
My transition of Billy Zane rogering a fet is almost complete.
Well, my transition into the NBC Peacock is almost complete.
Let's just agree we're sillier than anything we're going to see in Wonderland.
Underland.
Oh, yes, stupid movies.
Your father set those shares aside for me.
He gave them to your mother, who sold them to me a year ago while you were gone, along with the bond on the house.
House bonds, stock shares, company ownership. Alice in Wonderland, everybody! At this point in the original book, she just got done talking with flowers and met the queen on a giant chessboard. But hell with that shit. Here she's wondering whether or not she wants to sign over her father's ship to save her mother's house. But it's in a garden. That's kind of the same thing.
Sea captain is no job for a lady. You can't just make things however you want them to be.
Clearly you've never met the writers of these movies. We do eventually get to... Underland. As the caterpillar, now a butterfly, leads her to the looking glass where she crosses over.
Look, someone's in there. Who's in there? Who's in there?
Oh no, the guests are trying to get in through the locked door. Hurry, Alice, before... they get in and ask what's going on. Why is this urgent? Believe it or not, we actually do partake in some Wonderland-ish material, knocking over Humpty Dumpty, bickering with chess pieces, doors leading to the sky. So this is what Alice in Wonderland could have been. Oh, bullshit plot ho!
What's the matter?
The Hatter's the matter.
He's grown darker, denies himself laughter.
And no scheme of ours can raise any sort of smile.
Yep, the Mad Hatter is feeling sad because he came across a blue hat that reminded him of his family killed by the Queen of Hearts. Not sure why Alice was brought in to deal with this. Maybe her slight sense of acting direction can set off Depp's complete lack of acting direction.
I found this. So if this had survived, my family must have too.
Yeah, if Depp's Hatter acting in the first one was the equivalent of his Fantastic Beasts performance, then this one is definitely his Mordecai performance.
I never said I was sorry when I had the child.
It's like his Willy Wonka was too drunk to find a job, so he became the local Ronald McDonald. He looks beyond lost.
You are not you.
There's a hole in the world like a great black pit, and it's from this movie that's full of shit. So, because I know you're all invested, why don't you remind us of the plot again, Alice?
Find Time's castle, borrow the chronosphere, travel back in time to Horror Inventor's Day, save the Hatter's family from being killed, and thereby save the Hatter.
And then get McFly to kiss at the prom so my picture will come back.
And if your past self sees your future self,
everything would be history.
That really doesn't sound worth the risk. I mean, I like the Mad Hatter. Actually, I don't even like him, but even if I did, it's not worth risking the entire friggin' world. You know, 'cause it's The entire friggin' world!
Who's this counting on you?
We all are.
Why? You really are making a mountain out of one of these! He's depressed, sucks. Grab him some Prozac, get him laid, and show him some Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, minus this episode. The end of the world does not need to factor into this! She goes to the center of time, as she's the only one who can do it because she's not from around there. Oh, those restrictive rules that limit the imagination of Wonderland. Oh, sorry, Underland. She also discovers that time is a he, played by Sacha Baron Cohen.
Who is there? I saw you. How did you get in? It is impossible.
Really? It was a literal hop and a skip. I don't see where the impossible comes in. Despite not being in the books, this character does surprisingly bring a similar charming goofiness that would probably be found in them. It's actually refreshing to hear ideas and wordplay centered around time being explored.
Everyone parts with everything eventually.
These minuscule artisans are my seconds.
Thank you for your use, sir.
If Alice came across time in the books, I feel like this is probably how it would go.
You see, the Jabberwocky killed his family on the Hornbendish Day, and I killed the Jabberwocky on the Frabjous Day, and I'd like your permission, if you please, to birth chronospheres and paradoxes.
But again, it doesn't last long. For guess who shows up again? No, really, they want you to guess before they reveal her.
Shall I announce you? Oh, never mind. I'll announce myself.
Who could it be? A performer who used to be subtle but gave it up for screaming and crazy hair. The other one. There you go. Oh my god, can we get that fast forward thing back from earlier? These are the parts that really need it! It looks like Time has fallen in love with the abusive Queen of Hearts, played again by Helena Bottoming Out Carter, as it looks like she still has it in her contract to have the camera 2 inches away from her at all times.
I could get even with my sister, and we could war. The past, the present.
Okay, you look like Pennywise about to French me. Please stop confusing the camera for your toothbrush! Alice decides to take control of the chronosphere to go back in time to save Hatter's family, but not before battling Time's minions. I have to stop this from turning into a Les Mis reunion. I can't hear Russell Crowe sing again!
She must have the chronosphere.
All our hopes fly with you.
So Alice travels to when the Hatter and his family made the crowns of the White Queen and the Queen of Hearts. Only princesses then. It looks like the crown doesn't fit the giant head though, causing the crowd to laugh. You know, for being Hatters, they really suck at it. Didn't they prepare for this?
Put a bag on her head. Okay, off with that!
Elizabeth, enough!
But I was going to say my trademark thing. It was going to be a big deal, and I'm not sure why it being interrupted is still trying to make it a big deal.
You are unfit to rule, Elizabeth.
She loses the crown and vows vengeance on the Hatters. Wouldn't it make more sense to vow vengeance on the lady that made fun of her? And the Hatter's father bawls him out.
All I did was laugh, Father. Why am I never good enough for you?
Why are you always such a disappointment?
You will believe a character you don't give a shit about is trying to make you give a shit about him. Alice tells the Hatter about how his family's going to get killed, but he doesn't care. So she tries to tell the family, but they're in the middle of fighting off incredibly forced exposition.
All of Witsend laments the day of your sister's accident.
As the clock struck 6, I shall never forget that snowy night when she hit her head in the town square. That moment changed everything.
Get it? Got it. Good.
So she goes to try and stop the Queen of Hearts from hitting her head, while Time tries to follow her but comes across the Hatter during his tea party. Again, in all honesty, this scene has a real legit Alice in Wonderland feel. It's different levels of insanity trying to relate to each other and getting nowhere. And it's actually clever as well as entertaining.
Is it true that you heal all wounds?
Time is on my side.
I have always wondered when soon is.
If you vex me, it will be an eternity.
But even that's botched in an attempt to throw a kind of twist in there.
And until the young Alice joins you for tea, it will always remain 1 minute till tea time for you and your underheads.
You get it? So when Alice showed up in the first film, she was actually freeing them. That's why they were at that table the whole time. Why is that supposed to be fun? Wasn't it crazier or even mad that they were just sitting there the whole time because they wanted to? No Nobody said, oh, I really want it so that they're prisoners there. They just wanted them to be in their own little world because it's enjoyable. Again, you're trying to add logic in something that doesn't need it. The series really is like the villain from Care Bears in Wonderland, trying to add logic and order to a world that shouldn't have any. Except in that, he's the bad guy. Here, it's just Disney! And that's still the better adaptation, by the way! Alice travels to the Hatter's childhood, and if you think him as an adult was boring and awkward...
You have a very nice head, and a nice head deserves a very nice hat. That's what my father says. Would you like him to make you one?
Isn't this just what you imagined with the Mad Hatter as a little kid? Imagine the animated one as a child bouncing off the walls, or the Martin Short one acting like a wild animal, and this one! As bland as that kid who gets axed off in Revenge of the Sith!
You have a very nice head. There are too many of them. What are we going to do?
And despite this not being directed by Tim Burton, it still somehow has the exact same shitty backstory as his Willy Wonka remake.
The function of a hat is to follow the proper dictum of society, not to be fun. Hatting is a serious business.
Why can't my limiting ideas get through to your slightly less limiting ideas? Despite having 2 attempts to tell the family how to avoid getting murdered, Alice once again neglects to so she can stop the Queen of Hearts from hitting her head. Which it turns out is because her sister stole a tart and blamed her.
Did you eat the tarts and put the crust there?
No, but you did, you're lying. No, it's not fair. It's not fair.
Next she'll be telling me she ate Marceline's fries. Alice tries stopping the accident, but she only ends up causing it, starting her head turning huge.
You cannot change the past.
She realizes now that she can't change time and it was wrong to meddle with it. But she also realizes that the Hatter's family is still alive. Go meddling! Always the answer! Time catches up with Alice though, and she observes they slowly die. And the end of the world will take place if the chronosphere is not returned. So naturally, Alice looks into her heart and tells him to piss off. Alice! She is literally looking at a dying man, and the end of the goddamn world is upon us, but the Hatter is sad! Ooh! She is so freaking crazy she belongs in a mental institution.
Where am I? You're in an institution.
Well, I'm glad you agree with me, movie, but... Huh? Okay, so apparently she passed out when she traveled through the looking glass, and they took her to a mental ward.
Textbook case of female hysteria. Untreatable, some say.
Okay, what are they gonna do with this? Well, she escapes.
3 years at sea taught me anything. It's how to tie a bloody good knot.
Why thanks, me. It was important to remind me of that, me. And she goes back through the looking glass. That whole thing lasted 3 minutes! Why the hell did we have that detour? As if Depp couldn't get any whiter, apparently thinking his parents are dead is killing him. Can't tell if he's dying of a broken heart or a broken career.
I should have believed you.
You believe me? You're Alice.
Never your Alice again. I'm putting you on a watch list. Hatter suddenly gets better hearing the news that his family is alive and that the Queen of Hearts most likely has them.
I'm going to find that Red Queen and bring my family home.
That is such a Hatter thing to say. God, he's such a well-defined character. So they all try breaking into the Queen's hideout? I don't really know what it is. Where they find his family is in an ant farm.
Everyone, it's you.
Hi, Dad. Been waiting a long time for this. But they all get caught because even though Alice verbally clarified the importance of tying knots, she forgot to verbally clarify the importance of bringing weapons to a battle. What kind of a dumbass captain are you? The Queen takes control of time and his machine to travel back with her sister.
Oh, this is all my fault.
No, all of it. But the guards decide they don't like the Queen and let our heroes go. Why the hell didn't you betray her when she was still there? As the Queen takes her sister to the tart moment so she can finally confess her lie.
She put them there.
Did you, Morana?
Did you?
So the moral is, everyone's a terrible person. It's the Seinfeld finale of fantasies. But the film follows time cop logic as the Queen sees herself, which somehow starts freezing over the entire world. So just a reminder, you can't change the past except when you can totally, absolutely change the past. Don't seem to recall her opening the door and freezing the world the first time she stole the tarts. But the Hatter was sad. They try to get the chronosphere back where it belongs as everyone starts crusting over.
Goodbye, brother. Brother, goodbye.
I have cherished every moment with all of you.
Gentlemen, it has been a privilege playing with you tonight.
Alice, of course, gets it back in time as the world is just barely saved and the White Queen finally confesses her fault.
I ate the tarts and I lied about it. I should have just told the truth and none of this would have ever happened. I'm so sorry.
That's all I ever wanted to hear.
Aw, that's just great. Hey, remember all those decapitated heads in the first film? It's okay, because she forgave her for the tart. Hey, remember that frog that was taken away from his family and executed? It's okay, because she forgave her for the tart. Remember the mass genocide, oppression, and countless lives destroyed because of every single one of these dumbass idiots? Tarts! It was all down to tarts. I think the real question is not who's the real villain, but who isn't the real villain? So yeah, things are okay, apart from the countless graves, as Alice goes home to see her mother signing the deed to her ship.
Mr. Harcourt, time is money.
I'm afraid he most certainly is not.
Where did you come from?
I walked right through the walls.
Arrest her. She escaped from a mental institution. Bye!
I may not be able to change the past, but I can learn from it.
We're not doing that?
You want me to sign them?
It's just a ship. There's always another.
We had that whole scene in the movie. We're just going to ignore it?
But you were my mother, and I only have one.
Okay. I guess straitjackets are useless over the power of learning lessons?
I knew that you would. Headstrong or not.
You're not a nice man, Hamish.
Ooh, that one hurt.
So they don't sign over the ship, and Alice's mother instead decides to give up her home to go sailing with her daughter.
Time and tide wait for no man, Mr. Harcourt.
Or indeed, woman.
Most unorthodox! Okay, so that was awful. Like really awful. Like really awful. Like really awful. Really awful. But I have to admit, I didn't dislike it as much as the first one. The first one had virtually no elements of Wonderland at all, apart from maybe a little bit of the look. This one at least tapped into some moments. The majority of Time's character was both clever and charming. Scenes with the chessboard and tea party felt more whimsically surreal and fun, like in the original book. And the overall visual style is quite impressive, even better than the first. Aside from that though, it still doesn't get across what makes Alice in Wonderland a timeless story. It still adds too many rules, too many limitations, and too many attempts to make it a big thrilling adventure when a small abstract story is more than enough. Both of these Alice films are bad, but I can surprisingly stomach this one a little more for the few good moments it had. On the whole though, it's still an oyster gone bad.